Welcome, guys. Welcome to Webit's scene of the future of digital advertising. Or should we call it the future of advertising? A good one.
Good point.
Okay, so you left my space there. Thank you for being here. I hope it will be a very interesting discussion because I really looked forward to it for the past couple of months. I was wondering what kind of questions should I ask, and good I did it because I'm already dying here after the first day of Webit. Good, I got a couple of questions already ready, but I'm sure that the participants will share their own opinion and vision on the different topics we're going to start. So first of all, again, Mr. Alain Heureux, President of IAB Europe. Thanks for having you here, Alain. Prince Pinakat, Interactive Marketing Manager of Coca-Cola Group Europe. Group Marketing, Interactive Marketing Manager.
You're going to get that.
It's corporate stuff, you know, I love it. So it's yeah, too much. So I hope I don't make mistakes with Google. So could you please present yourself with the whole title?
Sure. So I have a responsibility for developing the relationships that we have with a number of our verticals in the emerging markets, of which obviously Bulgaria is one of those.
Fantastic, thank you. And we have Norm Johnston, which I've presented here a couple of days ago in TV with Norm. I wish you excuse me. With the oldest in Europe digital specialist.
Yes.
I've read it somewhere.
Yes.
But you look good, man. You look good for the age you are.
Well,
So.
you haven't seen me naked.
Come on, it's a business-to-business event, you know. Okay, thank you for being here, the four of you. The representative of America Online just left the building because of very urgent engagements in UK, so, but I'm sure you've heard his presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. So let's start with it. Are we talking about the future of digital advertising, or are we talking about the future of advertising?
Well, I think you made the point a little bit earlier that you know, digital is the future of a lot of advertising, the majority of it. I think that varies by market. You know, I live in the UK, although I obviously have an American accent, so I'm originally American. Haven't picked up the accent yet, working on that. And obviously the UK market is a pretty sophisticated one. It was just announced by the IAB. Was it this week or last week that digital's overtaken television, which is a contentious statistic in the market at the moment, but nonetheless a significant event. So I think it's easy to get carried away when you live in the UK that everything is turning digital, but I think when you go into other markets, the same thing is happening, but at different degrees, and it depends on a lot of things like the infrastructure in the market, the education of the clients. So I think it does vary, but I think overall the trend is the same, that you're seeing a migration to digital. And I think the positive thing out of this recession, unlike the last recession in the year 2000, which was awful, is that we're not seeing that trend to go back to TV. We're seeing the trend to more digital. Again, it varies by market, but it's a positive thing. And if you look at where TV is going, it's becoming digital, IP-enabled. Radio in the UK is digital. I think mobile also connected to the internet. Amazon just announced that they're rolling out Kindle. So press and print, I think, will gradually become digital. It won't happen overnight. So I think in terms of a lot of the things that we perceive as advertising right now, it will become digital in the future.
And I would add to that to say that it will become probably digital-centric. I think in the 20th century it was a natural way to use, for instance, television as an important place in whatever you were doing. And it's not, you cannot quote this as being a general attitude. Sometimes there was something different-centric, but the vast majority of marketeers and advertisers who are looking for television as a central body, and around that you build something, because you were saying I need reach and frequency, and that's the magic of TV. So you were building everything around, and all the industry was built around it. Think about Cannes. I think it's a bit like the festival of TV. And I think tomorrow, or in a couple of years, we might have digital becoming the central place of all advertising and media strategies, because the consumers are there, you will build everything around, and then you still can end up with guerrilla marketing, or eventually TV, or whatever you're doing around, but it will be digital-centric as of the thinking process and concept. And that's what we're claiming, I think, today. And in some markets it's too early, but in some others, I think it's a valid point.
I mean, I'm sure that the cloud computing has probably come up at some point today. I haven't been here all day, but when you think about this notion of cloud computing as a repository for content, it doesn't matter what it could be video content, audio content, print content, really anything you could think of, including your content. And if you look at some of the statistics around how much data that we're personally putting into this system, it's quite staggering, actually. There's a huge generational thing there where I'm still a little bit reluctant to put some information onto the computer and share it. Whereas if you look at 18-year-olds and 16-year-olds, they'll put anything and everything up online. They have no regard for any of it. So all this information is sort of sitting in this repository, and what you end up having is devices like the TV and the Kindle that are simply connected to this cloud and will pull information. And I think the fundamental difference will be that all the things that we've talked about on the internet over the years, and we associate that with a PC, will start to be reflected in these other devices. So the notion, for example, pull over push, which our friends at Google know very well, you know, the ability to simply go in and type something in and get that content on demand, which has historically been a website. You'll see the same thing in television and other devices as well, where people will simply extract content, a television program, whatever it may be, out of that cloud.
I think it's about media neutral planning, right? So, as you said, the question is what sort of content is it that I do want to convey, and how do I want to interact with the consumer based on that content? And then I look at the country or the region where I am in, and say, okay, you know, in GB it makes a lot of sense to be in all different digital channels, whereas maybe in other countries I should start with a simple website and have a bit more in the classic media range. But actually, if you want to swim ahead the curve, you should actually always have more than the average within the digital space to make sure that you stay ahead of the game.
Agree.
Sorry, go ahead.
Until now, we had the opinions of one of the biggest media agency in the world. We had the regulation body, the only in the world, the biggest one, and we had the advertisers' point of view. So it's good to ask the biggest the biggest platform for advertising in the world now. What is your opinion on this?
Sure. I mean, I think I'd echo the. I mean, you'd expect somebody from Google to say, of course, advertising is going to go digital. I mean, we won't say anything different. But I think the word that I pick up on is digital-centric is a very good description of it. What we see is there's very much a correlation between the type of activity, the advertising activity that takes place offline, and then the activities that people do online. So if you run a poster campaign, if you run a TV campaign, if you run a print campaign, then that will be reflected in terms of what people are searching for. And we see pattern time and time again. So what we'll see is that even outdoor channels are not going to go away. I don't believe magazines are going to go away anytime soon, newspapers anytime soon. But what we will see, and I think we'll see the smartest advertisers are just thinking a little bit more holistically across the whole advertising mix as to, okay, let's not make digital an add-on to my activity, but let's make digital the core, the center of my activity itself.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think in the UK, and I agree with what you're saying. I think we spent years trying to fight for budget for the internet. I mean, I remember years ago it was 0.5% and then 1%. It was these big, oh my God, we're at 5% now. And I think throughout the years we were always battling against television and some of these other devices in some respects because we didn't see an equilibrium in the way the money was spent, reflecting the way that consumers were spending their time. And now that it's caught up and surpassed television in the UK, I think people are taking a little bit of a step back and taking a harder look at how these things work together. And the reality is, we can tell there's a huge spike in searches on Google when we run a television ad. People still watch television. I mean, the television consumption is higher than it ever has been. So I've spent all these years fighting against TV, and if you look at the data, people still watch tons of TV. Now, they may not watch the advertising as much as they used to, and certainly advertising on TV has changed because of fragmentation. So if anything, the playing field has simply been, I think, leveled to a greater degree and reflects more of how consumers are using the different media. But it isn't a zero-sum solution necessarily. People will watch TV and they'll have the laptop open on their lap, and they'll surf at the same time. And the data that we see indicates that. So it's really about how do you best get these things working together in a way that reflects how your audience is actually consuming and using it in the most appropriate way.
I think that's a very important point, the idea that people are often now consuming more than one type of media at the same time. So I think the stat is after eating, people spend more time on the internet as a secondary activity when they're watching television than doing anything else. So if you're, as an advertiser, you're not sensitive to that point, that if you're showing an ad on TV and a customer goes and searches at that point, then can't find the information, the follow-up information, then you're losing an opportunity there.
Before I ask you actually the genuine question of this panel, which I hope I have a very clear and honest answer, especially from Google, I want to bring you back. I don't want we to sound like the gathering of Davos, where we're above everything and downstairs things are happening, but yeah, on the major level we are doing well. We are here in the region of Southeastern Europe, right? And you accepted my invitation to be here, to share and to give example for the markets. And these markets need good examples. Why? Because, as I've shared at the opening, here in Bulgaria, the total ad spend on online is about 15 million euro. I put there about 5 for Google, so otherwise it's about 10. In Romania, it's about 30 million. And it's the same all over. So it's just a tiny, tiny spot on the interactive map of Europe. So we have a lot to catch up. I would like to ask you to share from your point of view where you are now, having UK with a TV being the second spend after internet. Let's walk the way. Let's do it together now. Let's walk the way from 1 point. Okay, let's put it in Bulgaria. It's about 4. It's where you started. About 3.7 to 4, depending on the Academy research shows about 4% interactive market advertising. To let's not ask for 23. Let's step at 15. The development of the market. What should these players here? Because here we have the major players of the market. We have the advertisers. We have the marketing directors. We have the digital agencies. We have the biggest online media and other media. So let's walk the way. Just let's try to be fast forward, but to share what is happening and what should we expect. And the next question will be the future. But please, Norm.
Okay, if I start going to seizures over my experience over the last 10 years, it's been a long battle. It really has been. And I think when I look back, I mean, I told you the recession in 2000, we all thought that we had made the wrong career choice. I remember looking at each other thinking, my God, what have we done? Because the internet was a dirty word back then. So
I
don't
remember.
lose.
I remember.
Yes,
I remember.
yeah, I'm sure a few of you do remember those days, and boy, how times have changed. But don't lose faith. I think when I look back at the UK experience, the one thing that made a huge difference was broadband. And I don't know your broadband penetration levels here, but certainly when broadband kicked in, which was really probably 2002, 2003, things fundamentally changed. Because remember the old dial-ups? Does anybody still have dial-up here? The old dial-up sound. Every conference there's a few people that still have that awful noise when the modem kicks in. And when that's gone, and when you simply have your PC and your laptop open, and we talk about Google moms who've got the laptop in the kitchen and use it for recipes and homework and travel, whatever. Things fundamentally changed, and then we pretty quickly, actually, to some extent, saw the money flow into online. The other thing I would say too is, the thing I'm not sure about Bulgaria, but the thing that we're seeing in some other markets too, where we don't have quite maybe the PC penetration, is people are going straight to mobile. They're not even thinking about the PC. And that's the other thing I think we need to get past, this notion of the internet being the PC, because I don't think it will be moving forward. And that may be television connected to the internet, but I think certainly mobile is the place to look at. If you look in China, for example, about 1/3 of all internet consumption comes from the mobile phone. That's about 73 million users in China. There's 600 million mobile phone users in China. So if you're a marketer in China and you're thinking about internet marketing, you're not necessarily even thinking about the PC. You're going to go straight straight to the mobile. And the same thing is happening in Brazil and India and some of the other BRIC countries. So I think it's also thinking laterally of not just being fixated always on the PC, but thinking about the broader opportunity around that cloud, around the internet.
4.4 billion is the prediction of Gartner mobile users till the end of 2009. Let's see. That's why actually mobile is one of the hot topics of Webit. It's maybe the newest topic for the whole region. Having in mind how much was the interest towards mobile, even though we have Saurabh Chopra, we have Paul Burney here, we have fantastic speakers and professionals all over Europe. It's still to come. They don't have this full hole there, but hopefully it will be developing. But yeah, please share your vision on this, Prince. You are from the other side of the barricade, the market, where you actually invest into the market, being advertiser. So, being global director for Europe Interactive, you know the markets for sure. Is there something that you're missing in the Bulgarian, in the Romanian, in the Macedonian, in the Turkey or Greece market? Is there something that you need the market to be developed so you can invest more in interactive communication? I open the brakes. We are not talking about internet as communication channel, right? We're talking about internet as a platform where people share, create, communicate, get feedback, or not. So we're talking about the new way of branding, which is different than the traditional marketing. So could you please share this? Because
so
it's part of the way.
You're clearly mentioning a point. So when I look back and think about how did we approach internet, because I used to be a brand manager in Germany years ago, and that was sort of the first time that I really started to think about how can we utilize the internet for our campaigns. And the thing that kicked off everything and that made us think about, okay, there is something, was always when we opened the communication to the consumer and allowed him to respond to us, be it a simple SMS response campaign or a voting system for whatever campaign. That was the point where we saw, okay, there is a place for digital marketing because the consumer has the need and wants to communicate with us. And if we open that channel, then we have to obviously utilize the channel to the extent that it's available. Now, the advice that I can give to marketeers in Bulgaria is clearly, if you develop campaigns and you have the infrastructure in place, which I understand is actually, then try to allow consumers to participate, not just consume. And that's the point where you understand, okay, they really embrace the opportunities they have with the web. If that happens, that's when you can start to actually build further and develop social media strategies, etc. But first, try to understand, is the consumer actually ready to utilize the digital space the way that we can actually, make it available?
Thank you. And how is actually Google fitting in this? Sorry, should I ask how is the market fitting into Google? Which one is the right one? It's a joke. So how is Google fitting in this situation, especially for the regional markets? What are your plans? How do you see the development for the next couple of years?
Sure. I mean, so the way that markets historically develop for us, and the way that we resource into those markets, is that our main asset is people searching, and the number of searches is our core asset. Putting aside the content network, the publisher network that we have as well, and the more that. In all these Southeast European markets, from relatively small bases in comparison to the UK, Germany, Netherlands, and so on, those assets for us are growing quickly. I mean, very crudely as a guide, if we take the months of June, July, and August this year and compare them to the same months last year, and you could argue that those months last year were before the meltdown or the slowdown that we saw. I mean, our query volumes here, our search volumes in Bulgaria are running approximately 50% greater than last year. So, there is irrespective of a slowdown in the market, there is an underlying wave of people coming online and not only searching with us, but also searching more frequently. And then as those query volumes, search volumes grow, then our challenge as a company is to monetize those searches. And we find that some of that will happen organically. Well-educated, well-prepared agencies will start running campaigns for their clients. we put resources into our central service team, which is currently in Dublin, covers many, many markets across Europe, and we work with selected clients and agencies, and then we start to put a physical presence on the ground. We don't have an office in Bulgaria currently. That's a reflection, I guess, of the stage of where we are at Google at the moment, but let's say last year we didn't have an office in Greece, we now do. We didn't have an office in Croatia this time last year, we now do. So we're very much at the stage where as the search volumes are growing, as advertisers are starting to adopt, that gives us a lot of confidence to say, let's see what we can do next in the market.
Just for my personal information, and I think it's interesting for the audience, how is your market in Romania developing at the same time compared to Macedonia and these around countries? Have you launched there your offices?
In Romania, no. In Macedonia, no. I think we would look at particularly Romania and Bulgaria and say we see a lot of growth and an exciting opportunity.
And one more question before I ask Alain his opinions while we keep it local, regional. In terms of what Google is doing locally, are you looking at the region as a whole? Well, you said that you already have in Greece, but are you, as a player, as a major international player, are you looking at the region as a whole, or you're looking at each and every particular market inside the region, having in mind the sizes of the markets? So if you launch your businesses, are you going to launch them at the same time, or you launch them country by country?
Sure. I mean, the way that we would approach from a consumer point of view is that that's part of, I think, why we've been as successful as we have in Europe particularly, is that we have tried to localize our consumer products as quickly and aggressively as possible. And if you build good products that are properly localized, then users will use them, or consumers will use them. I mean, in terms of the way that we're then structuring to address the business opportunity, I mean, my colleague here is in the audience, who is our regional manager for the Adriatics region for Bulgaria and Romania, which shows that commercially we're approaching it as a region, but in terms of the way that we produce products for consumers, then we take it country by country, language by language.
It was a selfish question because I was really interested whether Webit is going to be the platform for the industry, because there are more than 1,000 people from the regions, for the countries around, which really do believe that they can have the good contacts between each other and with the rest of the world. So you are an investor for the market, you know, one of the biggest. So for sure it was a very important information. And Alain, again, while we keep it regional here, what are your predictions for the market, for the next steps? Let's put it for the next 2-3 years.
I think for sure what Norm underlined is like the access to internet is something that is not easy for all of us to influence, but the access, I mean democratic access to a fast and quality broadband is something that will change dramatically. If you can make it happen in Bulgaria, look to the Netherlands, the Scandics and the UK, all the developed markets are above the 70% of broadband penetration. That's something we need to work on and to think smart. How can we, together with the government, think about, and the operators, how can we work on that? So that's for sure one thing, and then the other is be united. You are united today because you were invited and you were excited about coming all together for digital, but go further. Create a project, and the project can be a trade association for you where you're all united behind one project with some priorities. And then think about the stakeholders. Norm, with the agencies, they need tools. They need research, they need measurement, they need metrics they can play with. And if you don't have it on the market, you need to provide it to them, because when you provide it to them, then they can start to think media strategy and planification and convince the advertiser. And the advertiser, think about them. They want some transparency. They want some, they don't want a black box and to put a million into it. They want to understand, what are we measuring? Who is where? What is the cost? How is the production process? And we need to make them confident that in Bulgaria it's organized and standardized. And that's something you can all work on. The standardization, the organization, and the tools and the metrics for the agencies. If we can do that, then I think the 15% will be accessible one day.
Agree. So now let's get the peel for the future. Let's again get back to the Davos feeling. What is the future of digital advertising? Channels, possibilities. All of us are willing to get ready for the future, to get maybe better educated, to get our tools ready. So how do you predict the future? And I wish this time to start with Google, because you are working constantly on this, so you push the markets quite fast. Every week we have news, starting with libraries, then with other things, old channels and possibilities. But let's get back to the advertising. What are the new tools? What do you predict in the for the future of digital advertising? Are there going to be new things?
Sure. I mean, I think if you look as a company where we're investing money at the moment, we're making a big investment in the whole mobile arena. Norm has already mentioned that. We do, as a company, we very much buy into that idea of the cloud and accessing information from whatever device, whether it's a PC or phone. So tailoring solutions that, let's say, work well for PCs and trying to make them work well on smaller portable devices, but also understanding what might be different and what might work well and what might need to be changed. That's an issue for us, and I think we're still, we're learning very much as we go. YouTube was a very important acquisition for us. I think it's taken us, let's say, one thing I think probably that has surprised us is the extent to which YouTube, which obviously is a mechanism for distributing video, at the same time has become a significant search engine in its own right. So the ability for us, for example, to say, well, okay, people are still performing the same sort of activity that they'd be performing on the core Google search engine of trying to find particular content, and then our challenge is then to place advertisers alongside those searches that match what people are looking for. So I think we see we see a lot of evolution. I think the theme that we as Google will hope to see carrying forward is this idea of is the continued idea of accountability and measurability. I think what we've seen in the slowdown over the last 12 months or so is that there has been marketeers have tried to focus more on really understanding the effect, the extent to which you can. I mean, obviously you can't measure everything, but where you can measure and where you can benchmark, then you do that. And that theme, in terms of whatever happens going forward, I think the ratchet of measurability has wound forward, and it's not going to wind back now. Which I think is why, as we come out of the recession, there won't be that bounce back to TV in the extent that there was after 2000, 2001, because attitudes have changed as to how measurable people believe their advertising would be, and I'm sure Coke would have a perspective on that, for example.
Princess advertiser?
Well, the one thing is measurement, and here the task that we as a 120-something-year-old company is to translate the metrics that we get out of digital into metrics that a normal brand manager actually understands. Now, what's a click? How much brand favorability scores do I get for a click? So that's the one task that we face there. And we're getting there, clearly, with your help, actually. Looking to the future, short term, clearly, digital-centric is the approach. So we work on campaigns that are soon to be launched, where digital is at the core of everything, right? All the other advertising channels actually support digital. So that's one thing. And the other is clearly it will only get more opportunities to interact with our consumers, and that means we have to put more attention, put more resources behind digital to be able to actually utilize those opportunities. And these are new opportunities. We have to change the way we think about our consumers and about their media consumption behavior. So it's a challenge for us, for everybody, everywhere. It's not just in the developing countries. It's the same in the UK as in the US or in Bulgaria. So we clearly have to change the way we used to market our brands to understand and make sure that we deliver against the changed behavior of our consumers.
Before I ask Norm the same question, I want again bring you local. You said that the future campaigns will be concentrated over digital. Where?
Where? Okay.
Are we talking about Southeastern Europe? Are you going to invest in digital communication here in this market? Because for now, Coca-Cola is not investing quite a lot in digital communication, either in Bulgaria, Romania, etc. Please tell me if I'm wrong. But I'm here at Webit. I have to represent the market. Yeah. Good. I'm giving the market good news. So I'll be glad to have good news now after you. So are you going to invest as advertiser? Or first of all, you will start with the developed markets, and then you will translate somehow towards the market. So do you make difference between the different markets?
Yeah, well, what we do is actually we develop, a campaign. As I said, it's usually media neutral. And then we take it to the different markets, and they then have the task to install and implement the campaign according to their media landscape and according to their users' consumption pattern. So if you have, I'm just making up the case, if you have only 2% internet penetration, then it's probably difficult to run a digital or internet-centric campaign, right? So I don't know the figures, to be honest, with regards to digital spend and investment in Bulgaria.
I can give you the figures, actually, if you're interested. 67% Sofia penetration, top 10 countries in the world, cities in the world with top 10 in terms of quality of internet for Sofia. Good news for the past 10 days. We have the 16th operator in the world providing 21 megabits mobile internet. We're the 16th in the world, not bad. We have approximately 37-40 internet penetration in the country as a whole, with above 50 in the biggest cities. Romania, really not that good. We'll have these guys later on. But yeah, they're with about 30% penetration for the country, with high percentage for the Bucharest and the biggest city. So it's about like this.
Well, the numbers are obviously, impressive and beyond what I would have expected. But then again, the question is, you have the infrastructure, but is it used, and in which way is it used? Is a consumer used in Bulgaria to go on YouTube and watch videos? I mean, YouTube is probably here, and they probably could do it, but would they rather go to a normal TV station? And that's what we look at. Is it consumed the way that we believe, the way that it's for instance in the UK, or it's in the US, if so, or in Germany, or any other country? So it's really about the consumption behavior of the consumer. And if we feel it doesn't make sense, it works, then that's when we invest behind it. I think YouTube is in Bulgaria amongst the top 10 websites. So the answer is yes, obviously they consume YouTube. So if we have a campaign that is YouTube-centric, then we will obviously put some resources behind that, really.
I mean, just in terms of, let's say, one very specific benchmark. I mean, I was speaking, had a meeting this morning before coming here with a auto car distributor. Their parent brand for one of the brands that they manage ran a campaign for the brand online campaign for the brand across multiple markets. And then when they looked at the results in terms of the calls to action which they had planned as part of the campaign, but I think the point, what they were saying, and that was a very pleasant surprise, was that Bulgaria, benchmarked for its size, they'd had the third best response of, I think, a number of up to 15 different markets within Europe. So it wasn't that Bulgaria was number 14 out of 15 or number 12 out of 15.
What about Romania and the other countries?
It was number 3. I've only have the data for the Bulgarian market, but shows a degree of responsiveness.
And that actually goes back to the fact that if you're ahead of the curve, then the impact you can generate is much higher. So when we in Germany started the first voting mechanism online in 2002, we had click rates on our banners of 40%, revisit rates of more than 90%. We did it 2 years later, very similar mechanic.
Wow figures.
They are wow figures because it was early days. 2 years later, I mean, you could cut 90% of that numbers. So you were probably in a stage where you should run that sort of campaigns. And those numbers obviously prove it, because in 2 years' time, you will have to be much more sophisticated and much more efficient in your investment.
So advertisers, hurry up if you want your online campaigns to be effective these days. Norm, I would just ask you for a short answer to the future of advertising, especially digital. I know it's easy for you to say it. So because I've promised the people here in the hall to have the possibility to ask questions, and we are already 3 minutes late. So they have their 10 minutes to ask questions. So what do you think are the future channels, or how the digital advertising should change and evolve within the next couple of years? Just 1 minute, please.
I'm from Ohio. We speak very slowly there, so I don't do quick. Well, I think it's good. I think I would say that I'm American. I tend to be very positive, but I think you're in the right place. I mean, can you imagine sitting in the newspaper conference right now? I mean, how exciting would that be? My God. So, the skills that you have and the experience that you're generating is going to be useful in many different ways that you can't even imagine in the future as digital goes to television, which I think is being reinvented, and I'll talk about that tomorrow, and it goes to the Kindle and all these other areas. The other thing I would say, too, is that we get caught up in spend numbers all the time. And I think what we're also seeing is a completely different approach to the way that we look at the budgeting process. So for example, for a client, we recently looked at first earned media and owned media before we even got to the paid media part. So we look at the digital spend numbers going up. It doesn't really reflect everything that's going on within our business. In Google, they'll never talk about the natural search area because they don't make any money out of it, but it's still 80% of the clicks that are on that page come through natural search, and that's not reflected in the numbers that the IAB reports. So I think being really smart about really compelling content, and the great thing about the internet with YouTube and all these other properties, you can do incredible things at probably half the price you could do in television. They're quite compelling. Ensuring that content's accessible, people can find it in search engines, whether paid or natural. Let people socialize, get consumers engaged in that process, build up the earned media, and then complement that with the paid media, whether that's offline or online, to make sure people are aware of that content that's out there. So I think it's not just the new devices that are coming out. There's also the way that we manage this whole ecosystem that's going to be increasingly connected together will be very different as well.
Okay, I have so many questions for you. I was planning to ask you about the merger of the different channels, how you merge the sales and the marketing and the advertising in these terms. What is the future? So is there somebody from the hall who wants to ask my question? Okay, please. Now, use this possibility for the next 5 minutes to ask Alain and Prince and everybody here your questions, because we have here maybe the biggest players on the market generally, so you can benefit from their know-how for sure. Please be active. Oh, please, yeah, if the microphone is with you.
Yeah. Question for Prince. You spoke about YouTube. I think in Bulgaria the biggest video site is Vbox 7. Sorry. How will Coca-Cola approach the global versus local media from this point of view? I mean, how do you see this evolving? Because YouTube is not the biggest here.
So with regards to media, we have a quite simple approach. That is, media is always local, because it goes back to the local media consumption pattern of the consumer. So if Vbox is the biggest video sharing site in Bulgaria, the likelihood that our local teams will invest there more than with YouTube is quite high. Then again, if we have a global campaign that, for technical reasons, and that, all of you know that there are quite a few technical reasons why we would do it, then we would probably go to YouTube. Having in mind, you will have to drive consumers to a destination anyway. Nobody goes randomly to a Coca-Cola channel on Vbox or YouTube. So at the end of the day, it does not really matter where you drive them, unless it's so not relevant and so not working in that market. So the answer is, we look at the local relevance of specific channels and activate them.
Thank you. Next question.
There was one.
Please.
In regard to Google website optimizer and pay-per-action bidding, do you think that computers will replace humans in marketing?
A good question. Interesting one.
Okay, well, yes. I think a conference a conference full of computers rather than people wouldn't be so exciting. But I think, yeah, I mean, the answer to that has to be that computers and the systems that we use will provide us, I think, with more data, with better data that will allow us as people to make better decisions. I think also what we will see is, I mean, certainly from our point of view, there's a lot of work that we have to do as Google to help to make that human-computer interface better. And what our CEO always says is that, let's say, search is not a solved problem. We're very much still at the beginning of how you tell computers what to do. And the same way, I think we're also at the beginning in terms of taking the information that we get from computers and interpreting that and reusing that. So I think in our lifetimes we'll still be safe there.
Norm, this was a treating question for you. It's a threat for the media.
About the so what was it? It was about filters and search, and I didn't catch the whole question, but the ad exchange.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, the issue that the media properties have right now, and Google with having purchased DoubleClick, is they've got tons of inventory that's exponential. It just keeps growing as people create more content online, whether that's in Facebook or MySpace, wherever. So, you know, there's just lots of inventory, and it's increasingly cheap. So I think what they're trying to do is really manage that inventory better and enable people to go in and buy it at a much cheaper price at a CPA level or via bid. So I think it's a great thing. It's a very positive thing for the industry. I think it depends on the type of business that you are. If you're an SMB and you don't have a media agency, perhaps, I think it's a great opportunity to try to spend more money online in a way that you can easily manage. But it isn't the answer to everything. You know, of course, you've got Google and YouTube and the Exchange, so there you've got the answer to everything. But I think it's something that we're looking at as complementary to the other activity that we would do. And I think it depends also on the type of client that you are. I mean, we work with Unilever. That probably has less interest to them than maybe somebody like HSBC, who's a bit more CPA focused.
Okay, I have to break my own rules. Could I please ask you not to stop my microphone? One more question, please. Please.
My name is Dimitar. I'm very much interested. I didn't hear about that today, but I'm very much interested to see, from my own experience, online advertising goes to mobile. Or at least I myself don't tend to open my laptop anymore, but I use my BlackBerry for a lot of things that I do. And I'm interested to know from Google or Coca-Cola, how do you approach this trend? You want to start?
Sure. I mean, I think what we try and do is with everything that we do, we try and be very iterative. So we don't expect to get things right first time. We will trial and experiment. We have probably 20,000 Googlers, people who work for Google. Everything that we use externally is trialed on us as a database first, and we learn from that. But I think if you take mobile advertising particularly, then you know, it's the type of activity that we see currently is a lot more short-term and tactical in approach than maybe on the internet more broadly. So let's say if you're going to investigate, let's say you're less likely to see an ad on a mobile phone for a destination for let's say a 2-week holiday, which is going to cost you and your family $6,000, 6,000 euros, whatever the figure will be. But maybe something which is a mobile phone offer which is of the order of 100 euros, you're more likely to see something, and something that is time limited, you're more likely to see that on mobile devices now. But I think over time, as let's say the devices get quicker, the networks get quicker, and people get more confident with their devices, then you'll see a broadening in terms of the type of campaigns and activity that is run by mobile devices.
Thank you very much. Sorry, but we really have to stop now. I'm sure you have many questions. Each and every one of the presenters now still have their own presentations during Webit for the 2 days. So each of them who are willing, they will share their emails with you, so you can easily ask questions that way. I'm sure that there'll be lots of, so get ready, guys. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for being here, and have a great day, and tomorrow also. Thanks. Thank you. Pleasure having you.